Lou Holtz once said that the person who complains about the way the ball bounces is likely the one who dropped it.
Well, Rick, our question this morning is, where did they go wrong? And our theme text is found in Joshua 24, verse 15. And if it seemed evil unto you to serve the Lord, choose you this day whom you will serve, whether the gods which were your fathers served that were on the other side of the flood, or the gods of the Amorites, in whose land ye dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord.
And Jonathan, in the first hour, we talked about 3 examples of failure in the Bible. And we're going to talk about a number of examples in the second hour as well of failure. And each of those 3 examples of failure went wrong because of something different. Mm-hmm. The first example of failure was the nation of Israel when they decided they wanted a king instead of the system of judges.
That's right, the peer pressure of all the other nations that had kings, and they didn't.
Right, so they wanted to be like everybody else. Doesn't that sound familiar? So pressure can be one reason that sends us to go wrong. The second example was King Saul, who was the first king of Israel.
Right, but the power went to his head.
And as a result of the great power that went to his head, he had inflated his ego to a size that was not manageable anymore, and he was cast off as king. The next king of Israel after Saul was King David.
That's right, and passion struck him by this beautiful woman. And got him into a lot of trouble.
Yeah, and that was just the tip of the iceberg there, because then the passion led to illicit sex, and that it led to trying to be deceptive, and then it eventually led to murder. But with David, what happened was he, as we heard at the end of the first hour, it was not a lost cause. He did not ultimately fail as a result of his failure, but he did suffer many, many consequences. But he fell to passion. So we have observed 3 linked stories that all showed failure due to what we will call the 3 Ps: pressure, power, and passion. So now let's take a look at these in other failures in the Bible and begin to figure out how to avoid them, because we haven't talked about avoiding them yet. We're just sort of labeling them, going through these real-life stories of people making very bad choices and failing. I mean, failure is not a comfortable thing to talk about.
No, it's not.
When you want to look back over your life, do you want to be able to recount the victories or the failures? Let's think about it just for a second. We'd like to avoid the failures, don't we?
Oh, yes.
But this is important for us. So let's go back to pressure. We started with that. Let's look again at pressure with a New Testament example, and then look at some ways to avoid it.
Luke 22:54 through 65. And they seized him and led him away, and brought him into the high priest's house. But Peter followed afar off. And when they had kindled a fire in the midst of the court, and had sat down together, Peter sat in the midst of them. And a certain maid, seeing him as he sat in the light of the fire, and looking steadfastly upon him, said, This man also was with him. But he denied, saying, Woman, I know him not. And after a little while another saw him, and said, Thou also art one of them. But Peter said, Man, I am not. And after the space of about 1 hour, another confidently affirmed, saying, Of a truth, this man also was with him, for he is a Galilean. But Peter said, Man, I know not what thou sayest. And immediately while he spake, the cock crew. And the Lord turned and looked unto Peter. And Peter remembered the word of the Lord, how that he had said unto him, Before the cock crew, this day thou shalt deny me thrice. And he went away and wept bitterly. And the man that held Jesus mocked him and beat him. And they blindfolded him and asked him, saying, Prophesy, who is he that striketh thee? And many other things spake they against him, reviling him.
So, Jonathan, again, this is a very commonly quoted story of the 3 denials of Peter to Jesus. And remember, before this, Peter was the one who said, Oh no, I'll go to death with you if it's necessary. And Jesus warned him. Again, he warned him of the impending denials. But what happened was there was pressure. They were taking Jesus in, and the pressure of people talking by the fire on the outside, and Peter he succumbed to this great pressure. The sad thing is, this is his last interchange with Jesus. Remember it says, and Jesus looked upon him after he denied him. So his last interchange with Jesus was being revealed as the one who denied he even knew him. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. So Peter gave in to pressure, and in the scripture it says, what his reaction was. He went out,
wept bitterly,
because it just broke his heart that he did not have the strength of character to stand up and face whatever the consequences were. So you have Peter going through this. Jesus is then mocked and tried and crucified, and 3 days later he's raised, and then he has the period of time where he appears to the apostles a few times. So let's go to one of those appearances of Jesus to the apostles and look at the end result here of what happens to Peter as a result of all of these things.
John 21:14-19. This was now the third day that Jesus appeared to the disciples after he was raised from the dead. When they had finished breakfast, Jesus said to Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" He said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." Jesus said to him, "Feed my lambs." A second time he said to him, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" He said to him, "Yes, Lord, you know that I love you." Jesus said to him, "Tend my sheep." He said to him the third time, "Simon, son of John, do you love me?" Peter felt hurt because he said to him the third time, "Do you love me?" And he said to him, "Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you." Jesus said to him, "Feed my sheep. Very truly I tell you, when you were young, you used to fasten your own belt and to go wherever you wished. But now you grow old, you will stretch out your hands, and someone else will fasten a belt around you and take you where you do not wish to go." He said this to indicate the kind of death by which he would glorify God. After this he said to him, "Follow me."
So this is a very, very different scenario. Jesus has risen from the dead. This is the third time he's appeared to the disciples, and he's having this conversation with none other than Peter. And he's asking him, "Do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me?" And each time Peter's answering, "Yes, you know I'm fond of you."